Hi, I'm Kurt Mitchell, and welcome to the Rhythm and Composition Tape. What we're going to cover in this tape are these things. We're going to talk about how to get a good rhythm sound, distorted, a good semi-distorted sound, how to get a good clean sound. We're going to talk about power chords and review some power chords, which we've already talked about in this course. Just do a little review. We're going to talk about chords that are not based on the power chord formula, that are expanded chords, or chords other than straight-up power chords. We're going to get into song analysis and the structure of a song in today's type of music. And by the end of the tape, we're going to actually write a song. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get to it. Let's tune up right now. Okay, I'm going to give you an A, or fifth string. I'm tuned down a half a step for this tape because I record down a half. I always record a half step down because it's a little easier on the voice. I'm going to give you an A or fifth string, and what I want you to do is tune your fifth string to mine, tune your guitar to itself, then come back and check it against mine again. Okay? Let's get to it. Okay, let's talk about how to get a good rhythm sound, a distorted rhythm sound. The main thing that I go for, well, let me explain the first thing to you. There's two types of rhythm sound in rock guitar right now that are very distinct. There's the radio-oriented style rock with quite a bit of mids, and then there's the really heavy metal stuff that's going on that has no mids in it. And without getting into a seminar about frequencies, the frequencies are between like 500 and 800 hertz where they boost. They're actually low mids, okay? Stuff like Lynch Mob, George has a sound with a lot of mids in it. Metallica has no mids, so those are the two different types of sound. The thing that you want to try to do is get the right amount of distortion, and that is always a sticky situation because I know a lot of people who can't play leads without piling the distortion on, so you have to try to, if you're in a live situation, try to strike a balance between the two so that you're not real muddy. The more distortion you put into something, the muddier it's going to get on the bottom, okay? And I like the bottom end of my sound to be as tight as it can possibly be. What I look for in a guitar is a nice solid piece of wood, good pickups, pretty thick strings. I use 10s or 11s. And the reason you want a guitar that's built out of solid wood is so that you have a nice tight low end like that. And it has a lot to do with the amplifier and how you play also. Mostly how you play, you'll discover as you advance in your playing that it's how you play that is the biggest factor in how tight and clean everything sounds. But you have to have decent equipment also. And I plug my guitar straight into my head. My head's a 69 Plexi Marshall that's been modified by Todd Langner, the guy who designed the 88 preamp. And it gives me a sound that I can't get from anything else, and it happens to be the sound that I'm particularly fond of. And then I try to get, see, this sound that I'm talking about is a sound with the mids spiked up in it, like a la Lynch. And the one without the mids I was never too fond of, so I just don't use it. It just, like I said, depends on what you like to hear. Mainly what you want to do is keep the low end tight, keep the distortion down to a level that will provide you with a good, clean, distorted sound, which is a contradiction in terms, but that's what you're after, okay? So what I want to do now is talk about some power chords. We're going to lightly and briefly get an overview of the power chords that we've looked at in previous tapes in this series of lessons. And then we're going to start talking about chords that are other than standard power chords so that we can get a bigger vocabulary of things to work with as we write a song. Okay? Okay, what I want to do is go over some power chords. A power chord is going to consist of a root, a fifth, and another root. And the reason they sound so good with a distorted guitar is because there's a dozen zillion overtones that are inclusive in the sound when you have a distorted sound, okay? And you usually don't want to use thirds in it too much because there's so many overtones that they become distorted. So we're going to go over these, we're going to go over examples 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 10, okay? And there's other examples in there. I just don't want to spend all the time showing you power chords. Now the thing you also want to think about as you play chords of any type is how to keep them in tune. Basically, you have to have a guitar that's been intonated and not pressed too hard on the strings because you'll knock everything out of tune. You want to make sure that they are as in tune as they can be, especially when your sound's distorted, okay? Let's look at example number 1. Like I said, we've gone over this before in the previous lessons. I just want to make sure that we know where we're going, okay? Example number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is going to be a D. Now, there's a phenomenon known as bar chords to everybody who plays a guitar for more than 10 minutes. What I'm going to do is take those 3 open string chords and show you bar style chords so you can use those 3-note chords and move them anywhere you want to. Okay? So example number 4 is going to be an F. Example 9 would be a D, and here's the thing. I'm taking those chords, those 3-note chords, and all I'm doing really is repositioning my fingers and 2 frets down on these 2 particular, the F and the D, we could call them 6th-string power chords and 5th-string power chords because the bottom note occurs on those particular strings. Just using our finger as the nut, replacing our nut with our finger, okay? 3-string power chords. Here's a D. Example number 9. If you take a D chord, which was the last one we played, the 4th string power chord, and move it up, say, to an E, we'll take example 10. All you're doing is replacing the nut with your finger. Here's example 10. And that's usually the only types of 3-string power chords you're going to use, mostly in those positions. I mean, the more you fool around with the guitar, the more original you're going to become at things that you want to hear anyways, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just showing you these to give us a basis to start from. All right? And you can move those chords anywhere you want. You know what I'm saying? That's why they're so useful and why they're so widely used. That and they have no thirds to interfere with the sound when you have a distorted sound going. So, I mean, all rock songs have a few power chords in them. Anyways, let's start talking about, there's a couple more power chords I want to show you, and they're chords that use the same notes over and over again. So instead of a 3-string power chord, I want to show you a 6-string power chord, E. And there's still nothing but fifths in it, roots and fifths, okay? Let's look at an E, all right? This is going to be example number 13. Let's look at one more example of a multi-string power chord, if you will, for lack of a better term. Let's look at number 15, is going to be a G. Same thing, all fifths. I'm going to use my thumb to bar the G. This is a good chord. When you grab a G, it doesn't get bigger than this one, okay? Here's 15. You see how big those are. You know what I'm saying? You repeat the notes as you go up. You keep repeating, in the case of a G, you keep repeating G's and D's all the way up the neck. And they end up having the same, you're playing the same notes, which is the beauty of a guitar. You can play the same exact pitch in like 5 spots if you're playing an E on the guitar. Okay? Let's start talking about, what I want to get into now are chords that don't use just fifths in them. I'm going to go over a couple of major chords and a couple of minor chords for you, okay? Let's get to it. I'm only going to show you a couple examples of these because, like I said, we have other things to talk about. There are more examples in the book. I want you to learn them and know them all. The more you know, the better you're going to be able to play, okay? Example 17 is an E major. Now, what I usually do, and if you copy a lot of songs, you'll find that most of the time, when playing a major chord, that's a chord with a major third in it, with a distorted sound, the third is usually going to be on top, and it's surrounded by a bass of roots and fifths. So you'll have in an E major chord, you'll have E, B, E, and A flat or G sharp. And the reason you put the third on top is because you need something solid to set the bottom up, because when Bach tempered the clavichord or tuned the piano, he mathematically subdivided all the notes so that they're equal distances apart, and thereby allowing you to play in any key, okay? Now, the problem with that is that anything that's not a fourth or a fifth is basically out of tune, okay? And you'll notice that you'll get those wavers, and you tune your guitar, and you tune your guitar, and it wavers still. Sometimes that's bad strings also, fresh strings always. But you have to compensate for that by setting up a solid foundation to put the third on top of. So what I'm trying to say is usually the major third's on top. Let's look at examples 17 and 18. They're examples of E major chords, okay? Here's 17. Here's example 18. This is also an E major. Now you can hear that third going out of tune. If you listen to the first Van Halen record real close, stuff like Running with the Devil, he goes to the trouble of tuning his B and E strings flat so that he can get that chord to sound in tune. That's in tune. You see what I'm saying? But the problem with it is it's now out of tune with the rest of the guitar. But there it sounds good. So you have to sort of strike a balance between the two of them. I kind of tune my B and E strings a little bit flat, okay, instead of flat enough to make those power chords sound good, because basically I don't use them a lot in my writing. So it's up to you. Difficult situation. It'll never be perfect. That's the only problem with it. Let's go on now to some minor chords, okay? We're going to look at some minor chords now, like I said. The thing is about minor chords is basically the same thing. Usually put the third on top. Most rock music, for one reason or another, is also in minor. I mean the majority of it. Van Halen writes in a lot of major keys, but other than that, a lot of rock music's written in minor, and it's the mode I prefer to write in. Just because I always want to be angry about something, I guess. I don't know. It has more of a moody type of a tone to it. Let's look at example 23 and example, let me see here. What's a good one? We'll look at examples 23 and 25 for a couple of different voicings on the same chord, okay? Here's 23, ordinary A minor chord. 25. Now you notice 25 has a shakier sound because there aren't as many fifths in it. That's why you want to kind of set it up as best you can with some fifths on the bottom. And you'll also notice that these chords don't sound as solid as a power chord because the thirds are interfering, they're naturally out of tune, and all the distortion in the overtones starts to make the sound shake. Okay? Why don't I play for you a couple more. Let's see, we'll go to some minor seventh chords, okay? Let's look at the example. Minor seventh chords are cool because basically they're built on sets of fifths. If you look at example 26, which is B minor 7, so you have fifths on the bottom, and you have fifths on the top. The whole thing sounds like this. And like I said, the thing about those chords, and they sort of sound consonant, which means non-dissonant. But they still have that minor third up on top there, and it wavers things around a little bit. Let's look at one more. Let's look at an E minor 7, which builds on that position chord, and you bring that up to here, so you're playing a G. Basically what you're going to be playing is a G power chord with an E on the bottom. And they're good chords to use. The one you're going to mostly see is, let's look at example 28. The one you're going to see most often or be playing most often is this one. Example 28 is an F sharp minor 7. Because the fifths on top are solid sounding, and you can even leave the root note of your guitar off and have the bass cover the root note. and it gives you, you're playing fifths, so everything is sounding good, and there's no thirds interfering with the tone and messing it all up, interfering with the tuning when you're playing with a distorted sound. What I want to do now is start looking at some other chords that we can use that are basically built on fifths, stacking fifths up, that we can use to expand our vocabulary a little bit. Example 29 is going to be an A suspended fourth, okay? So what you do is, instead of having a third, as you ascend the scale, you'll have fifths. You'll have another set of fifths. Actually, these are fourths. And a fourth and a fifth is also the same interval upside down. So everything sounds good so far. A power chord, basically, okay? And then another set of fifths on top. And what you end up having is... Now, this is not a chord that you're going to want to base your entire song on. This chord wants to lead you somewhere, okay? But they're useful in stuff like this. Okay? Let's look at example number 31, all right? It's going to be a G suspended fourth. And this one's got the same type of thing, except for there's an interval of a second on the top, which sounds terrible by itself, but you build the chord around it and you have this. It's got a nice solid sound to it because it's built on a lot of fifths. Let's go look at a couple of suspended ninth chords, and like I said, you can move these all around, so experiment with these. I mean, learn these chords, stop the tape, and mess around for a while, okay? Let's look at an A suspended ninth. This is totally built on fifths. This is stacked up fifths, all right? You'll recognize it as soon as you hear it. It's used a lot. Example 32, A suspended ninth. Those chords, those suspended ninths and suspended fourths, are going to be real useful when we start looking at two-string phrases over a stationary note. Such as this. Let's take a look at some rhythms using two notes over a stationary note. What we're going to do in this example is and it's example 35, we're going to take a little thing that I wrote in E and play some things that descend and ascend phrases that are played over a steady E note. Okay? Let's look at number 35. Now you notice that I'm always like putting E, low E, in the middle of everything as it goes down. It's kind of a lynchy sounding type of a thing. Let me play it slow for you, and you can watch the chords move back and forth as we write the phrase, okay? Okay, let's take this idea and develop it a little bit, okay? Example 36, we're going to complete the phrase. We're going to take it to another key and just write a phrase. We're going to write a phrase with it, and it's going to be using the same principle, two strings moving up and down. And what we have is we're going to move to A for a second, okay? A minor from E minor. All right, let's check out example 36. Let's take that a little bit slower, okay? And then we'll play both the phrases together so you can see how they go in context, okay? Let's take the whole thing in context, and notice this time when I play it, I'm going to change 37 or 35 I should say. I'm going to change example 35 just a little bit at the end to make it interesting. You'll see what I mean. All right? Play both of them together, 35 and 36. And on and on. The reason I changed the second sets of them up and put those little things in there are to make the song interesting so you're not playing the same thing over and over and over again and it gets redundant. I mean, it becomes redundant anyways on most choruses out when they play the same thing over and over and there's a solo going on and you try to keep building the song, but glue. We'll get into glue later. That's what we call glue. How to tag the ends and beginnings of things so that they fit together easier, makes it more interesting. Let's go to example 38, and we'll play example 38 in G major. Let me play it for you a little slower. It's a sort of a shuffle thing with the times set a little bit off. But what I wanted to get at is I didn't play the same phrase twice. I changed it up and went up to a higher in order to make it more interesting. I mean, you don't want to hear the same thing over and over again in the same key over and over again. Okay, let me play it for you slow. The main reason I want to show you these patterns and these chords and these positions and give you some of this stuff, I wrote all the stuff that we've looked at so far, is so that you can try to get it in your head that you can be inventive and creative and you don't have to sit and play sliding bar chords all day long in order to write a good song. Now there's always going to be a place for the power chord because it's such a big sounding thing. And a matter of fact, there's some thrash metal going on right now where guys are doing some pretty inventive things with power chords. But let me play an example for you that I came up with. Listen to example 39, and we're going to play pretty much stock, straight-up three-note power chords, okay? Example 39. One more time. Like I said, there's always a place for power chords. Those are all straight up sliding around power chords, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just trying to get you to be able to experiment and not be afraid to try different things so that you can foster your own originality. The next thing I want to look at is arpeggiated picking, okay, as it applies to rhythm playing, all right? Example 40 is going to be an example of pseudo-arpeggiation. I mean, arpeggiation in the literal term means you take the notes of a chord and you play them singly, linearly, in other words, one right after the other. This isn't quite like that, but it's arpeggiated picking or broken chord picking, I guess you could call it. So we're going to basically what we're going to do is take chords and use single line picking and create a riff that you could write a chorus or verse to or whatever. Okay, so this is example 40. Let's play it one more time, a little bit slower, okay? You can use that single line type of stuff to set up verses and chorus and whatever. I mean, here's a prime example of something that's using single line stuff. There's no chords involved. Let's look at example 41. You'll recognize this immediately. One more time. The Ocean by Zeppelin, single line. He only breaks into the chords when they get to the, actually that's the verse, so that's kind of the chorus, isn't it? I mean, Zeppelin wrote some extremely original stuff. But just to get my point across, single line, three-piece band, you never miss keyboards or anything. It's perfect the way it is. So that's another tool that you have when you're writing a song. You can also pluck. Here's one more thing I want to talk about before we get to the clean sound stuff. You can pluck things. One more tool that you have is a plucking. So if you say if you are, you take your two fingers, you can stow your pick away in your middle finger like this. You see. And plucked on the strings with either these two fingers or three or whatever. Let's look at example 42, and this is an example of a plucked rhythm, okay? Let's do it one more time. I mean, that's Rebel Yell, and he's using his thumb. It's kind of a pretty nasty example because it's a little bit difficult to play, but you can see what I mean. We're plucking all the strings, and there's examples of this all over the place. Everybody does this. Eddie Van Halen and Lynch, and everyone does this stuff. One more time slower. Let's talk about a clean sound for a minute. There's a lot of things involved in a clean sound if you're going to get a good one. My sound on my amplifier is so distorted on my dirty channel that I have an AB box and I switch to another set of amplifiers to make a good clean sound, okay? It starts with the same thing. You need a good guitar with the right pickup configuration. You need new strings, good fresh strings. You need a good amplifier, and the processing needs to be right because a straight-up clean sound it seems to be a little thin and dry. You always want to have something on it, reverb or something. I prefer a strat type of a clean sound, an out-of-phase type of sound, which is not out of phase actually. It's just the rear pickup and the middle pickup on together. And like I said, make sure your strings are at least fresh, if not new. As far as the amplifier goes, a tube amp, I'm just a tube amp junkie, but you can get a lot of good sounding solid state preamps and amplifiers that will provide you with a really cool clean sound. Those old Roland amps were solid state amps, and those have a great clean sound, the jazz chorus amps. But as far as processing goes, you're almost always going to want a good chorus on it because it's just a sound that we've all gotten hooked on, that chorusy type of thing. And the thing about it is if you don't have it, it seems to sound flat. You have a chorus on your clean sound for a while, you take it off, and it sounds flat, and you need it. You really are going to, once you get hooked on them, you need them. What I do to my clean sound also is I'll either put some reverb or some delay on it. I happen to have both going right now. So there's some reverb and some delay on the sound as well as chorus. And like I said, I like that out-of-phase sound, so both my pickups back here are on. I have my guitar wired that way. I can either have both of them on or only one of them on. My dirty sound, I'm always using the bridge pickup. My clean sound, I flip both of them on. That's totally a matter of personal taste. A lot of guitar players like to use a neck pickup for their clean sound, and I've seen guys get great clean tones with a one pickup guitar with a pickup in the bridge position. What I want to do now is take a look at some chords, some ninth chords, and just a few chords that are really cool to use with clean sound, okay? Because they utilize open strings, and as you move your hand up the fretboard. Ones that I've discovered that I like anyways, I thought I'd show them to you. There's of course too many examples of chords that you can use with the clean sound because you don't have the same limitations that you always have with distortion. The overtones aren't there. You know, or they're there, but they're not audible, so you can't hear them. And you have a much bigger palette of chords to choose from when writing a song when you're using clean sound. Okay? Let's look at example number 43. Let's take a look at number 44. That was an E minor suspended ninth, by the way. Let's take a look at 44 is going to be an A minor suspended second. All right, let's check it out. Let me show you one more. There's plenty of examples of these. Well, actually, there's only two more here, but you know what you do is you fiddle around and keep fiddling around, and you find these chords if you're using open B and E strings. This one I want to show you because it's kind of neat to write solos and intros and stuff with this. It's a C sharp minor 7, okay, and it utilizes open B and E, the open first and second string, the B and the E, okay. E sharp minor or C sharp minor 7. Anyways, you can see that there's all kinds of things you can do with a clean sound. So I encourage you to experiment. I just wanted to show you a couple of the chords that I use when I write. Okay, let's get on with it. I want to move to an example of some funky style rhythm playing, so you can see just how many ways you can utilize a clean sound. Okay, so let's go to let me see example number 48. All right. Let's try it one more time, a little bit slower. Example 49 is an example of plucked clean chords. If you listen to Dawkins at all, you're going to recognize this one. Example 49. One more time, slower. Let me play you an example of arpeggiated clean chords. This is off the Bangalore Choir record, off my record. This one's off my record. This is arpeggiated things with some kind of cool little chord voicings, okay? This is example 50. Number 51 is an example of an acoustic style strumming thing that, that you'll hear a lot of, and that's kind of useful if you're going to write the nice ballad kind of thing. I'm going to play it for you on electric guitar, then I'll play it for you on an acoustic guitar. Okay, here's 51. On acoustic guitar, it sounds like this. I encourage you to find your own style, and don't be afraid to experiment, okay? When you're writing these parts, in a second what we're going to get to is the different parts of a song, and basically what goes on when you're playing rock guitar in a setting like this, in these kinds of songs, you take riffs, write riffs, and string them together, okay? Try to find something new. The biggest problem is, when I began writing songs, is I used to get married to something that didn't sound very good, and you get hooked on it, and you want to hear it all the time. If something doesn't sound right to you, change it. Keep changing it, and keep changing it, and keep changing it till it does sound real good. And finally, you get a knack for knowing when something's not quite right. And this is something I learned off when we made our album. Max used to always say, don't get married to stuff that's no good, because once you do, it's over. You want to hear it all the time, and you'll like something that's not quite right. Try to find your own sounds too. This is about how to be yourself, this tape. So let's go from here. I want to go to the different parts of a song, okay? Let's analyze some songs. In music today, geared towards the radio format, songs have different sections to them, and they have names so that you can keep them organized when you're writing them. The names are as follows. Usually, you have an intro, a verse, a pre-chorus, chorus, a solo, a bridge, and an outro, okay? The thing is they're usually, like I said, they're usually riffs that are strung together with little bits of glue, and which we're going to get just about to get into. They're usually similar to each other, these different parts, and you use dynamics, like an intro is going to be slamming in your face, got a solo flying over it, and a verse is going to be mellow, maybe with some clean sound, or dynamics plays a part in this. Sometimes you change keys for a verse, sometimes not. Usually change keys for a solo, but the first song we're going to look at, Ain't Talking About Love, doesn't change keys at all. As a matter of fact, the basic chord format, 2 A's and a G, doesn't change throughout the entire song. Even the arpeggiated version in the very beginning has the same 2 A's and a G thing going for it, and it doesn't change at all until the very end of the tune. The point I'm making is that when I was making my last record, they kept telling us we had to write in this certain style, and the verses had to be in a different key than the chorus, and everything had to be set up and structured this way and that. The fact is, if it's a good song, it's a good song. And it doesn't really matter, which is why, like I said, I'd like you to experiment and figure things out for yourself. Listen to your ears. If your ears tell you it's bad, it's bad. Let's look at the parts of the song Ain't Talking About Love, okay? Here's the intro. And then the intro is followed by a chorus pattern. Now these are obviously the chords on the guitar. We'll talk a little bit about the words to the music later, which are an integral part of a song, obviously. But it goes into a chorus right here, But it also is part of the intro. So you have something like this. Okay, and it does that. Then it goes into a verse. Now the verse pattern goes like this. And notice we're never going to leave A minor. And it's going to be A minor, G the whole way through the song. So here's a verse. But notice that he sort of calms down, he picks it more staccato, and there's dynamics involved, and the drummer's playing on the hi-hat instead of the ride cymbal, and you come down for a verse almost always. I mean, these are, you hate to be locked into rules because it seems like it's hard to be original, but the fact is, this is just the way songs go, and people seem to like to listen to music written this way. So we have an intro, a verse, and then we go to a chorus in this particular song, right? Which is... goes back into another verse, back into another chorus, and it goes into the solo, or the soli, actually. This is a written part. It's called a soli, instead of a solo. And it goes like this. Something like that. That's not exactly what it is, but irrelevantly, so there's the solo. And it goes into a chorus again, one more chorus. This is not a normal song format either. This has quite a few parts to it. And after the chorus, it goes to the bridge, all right? Now, the bridge is also known as a breakdown sometimes because all the music calms down and everybody gets real quiet, and the bridge is like this. And then it builds up to the thing with the flanger and this pick slide thing, to this thing right here. Right, so it's building up, they're building tension. They do that 2 more times and come flying in with another chorus. Ain't talking about love. They do 2 choruses, they go back to the soli. They do choruses with hey, hey, heys in them, which are played the same on the guitar, and everybody comes piping in with hey, hey, hey. And then they do the twist. This is where the twist is. The only time this song breaks to change keys, and it goes up to C. It goes like this. And then the outro is completely different than the whole song. And the outro goes, this is the outro. Anyways, I picked on that song for a good reason. Like I said, it doesn't ever vary from its key center, ever. And it's still a great song that everybody knows and loves. And when it all comes down to it, it's all about songs. When you start making records and you turn on the radio, I mean, it's fun to hear somebody play fast and technically well. But the solos are secondary. Everything is secondary. The song comes first. It can even sound terrible, and if it's a good song, it's a good song. Which is why I think this is probably the most important tape in these series of tapes, because if you want to be in the music business, you have to write a lot of songs, and you have to write them well. Let's take a look at an AC/DC tune. Let's take a look at Hell's Bells, okay? And we'll study that, the format of that, and then we'll get on with it and write our own song, okay? Here's the intro. That's the same as the chorus in this particular song, and that's kind of a cool way to write a song, is come barreling in with the chorus first, without the words, and then when it gets to the chorus, they're already set up for what it is that they're set up for what it is that they want to hear. Tension release. You make them want to hear it again. You know what I'm saying? And then it goes to bridge number 1, okay, which is just these 2 chords. Bits of glue is actually what it is. And it sounds like this. And that is almost just like the verse, but it's a little bridge to get you from the chorus to the verse, okay? So we're going to call that bridge number 1, all right, because it does it again. It's not like a middle 8, which is what the British call a bridge, which is the breakdown or the center of the song, okay? So this bridge is actually hooking up 2 parts. It's not glue. Glue is a smaller thing when we start talking about glue. Glue puts the pieces together, you know what I'm saying? This is a bridge, and it goes into a verse, which is almost exactly like the bridge. It goes like this. And the thing about it is it's a little bit tighter, a little bit softer, dynamics. Everybody comes down and sets down into the verse, okay? And then it goes to a pre-chorus. A pre-chorus sounds like this. The tension starts to build. They take it up to D, okay, which is the subdominant or 4 chord of A. All right, so they take it up to D and they start building, and this is how it goes. Check it out. And see, that goes up, then it moves also from D up to E, the dominant of A. And you're just hanging up there, and somebody's got to get back to the chorus because you just have to have it. That's the beauty of a good song. When they set you up for the chorus so bad that when it finally gets there, it's just the best thing you've ever heard on earth. That's why I picked these songs. I mean, this song does that to you real bad. A lot of AC/DC songs do. They know how to write a song, those guys. So we got a pre-chorus. And the second pre-chorus, I guess you can divide that pre-chorus into 2 halves, the D part and the E half. And then you go to a chorus. And the chorus is the same as the intro, right? Like this. And then it goes back to bridge number 1, right? Goes to a verse. It goes to a pre-chorus, same thing we did, and it goes to bridge number 2, okay? Let's check that out. That's sort of just a setup for the solo, and this truly would be like a middle 8 beats of setup. And then it moves to the solo, and the solo's in 2 parts. So let's check out the solo, okay? Then it goes directly into the pre-chorus, only they keep a solo on top of it, which still sets you up for the chorus. You know what I'm saying? So they play a pre-chorus, go straight into a chorus. And then they go into a chorus with a solo tag. Let me show you how that goes, okay? And before they get to the outro, it goes like this. Check it out. And that's all the time going on over. See, they're building you up. You know what I'm saying? They keep piling things on at the end of the song, so it just gets frenzied, and then they smack you at the end of the tune. I mean, they're playing that solo thing over the chorus, which is, and they've opened up, right? They're not playing it real staccato like they were in the beginning. They've just elevated the whole thing, and it's getting pretty vicious. And then we start getting into the outro. Okay, let's check out the way that goes. You'll notice this is the same as the solo. Now the thing is, and all the while the solo's building up and Brian's screaming away and it gets up there and into a frenzy and then they smack you with those three last chords. That's some good songwriting, man. You always want to build people up. The thing about songwriting is it's an exercise in tension and release, okay? You have to, if you played the same riff over and over and over and over again and wrote words over it, and it did the same thing the whole way through, it would be excruciatingly monotonous. I mean, you wouldn't be able to deal with it at all. So you want to build them up. You want to intro the song and take them somewhere for the verse. Set the verse down and take them somewhere and tell the story. You want to build it up a little bit in the pre-chorus, and then you want to smash them with the chorus. And the chorus has got to have a hook in it. We'll start talking about hooks in a minute. Something that catches your ear, that you can hum, that you can't get out of your head. You ever had a song you hate stuck in your head and it won't go away? That's good songwriting. Because if they stick in your head like that, you just have to hear it. You have to hear it. A good song, you have to hear it. I mean, when my Back in Black tape breaks, I go buy another one because you have to have it. You know what I'm saying? Let's get on with it. Let's go look at some modulations and some other things that are involved in songwriting, okay? There's a few different types of modulations, and when I took my music theory, they had a bunch of different types, and there was plagal and authentic and all that stuff. I don't want to get into that here because it really doesn't apply to what we're trying to do. I mean, in theory it does, because a modulation is going to have a name no matter what it is, and it's going to have its roots in classical music. But basically, in order to take somebody somewhere else, you have to shift to your key center, all right? Now, the easiest way to do it, the easiest modulation, which we're going to talk about in 1 second, is a half-step modulation, up or down. You just move up 1/2 step and your key center changes, okay? But if you're going to go anywhere else, and literally you can go anywhere, you can change your key to anything you want if you progress to a pivot chord, what's known as a pivot chord. And a pivot chord has the ability to set you up for the modulation, all right? It's going to tell you when you hit that chord, I'm going over here. I have some examples for it. I want to play for you example 52, and it's going to be an example of a half-step modulation, and then we'll do one with a pivot chord, okay? Let's go. That was an example of moving from E to F, modulating from E to F, a half-step modulation. The thing about a modulation is once you get there, you got to get back. You know what I'm saying? It's like going to the store. Once you get to the store, you got to get back. So you want to do it as smoothly as possible. I'm going to show you how I would get out of this particular modulation and get back to E. All right? Like I said, when we get to the next set of examples, we're going to talk about how to get. We're going to talk about a little bit more complicated modulations and how to get to them with the use of a pivot chord. But let's look at example 53 right now, okay? I actually did use a pivot chord. We took our C chord up to B. No, I'm sorry. We took our C chord up to D, and then went back down to B, which is the dominant of E, and thereby pulls your ear, it leads you somewhere else, and you want to hear some resolve after that B chord, and that would be the best one to go to would be E. So you ended up back in E after the B. That wasn't the slickest modulation I've ever heard. I want to give you examples 54, 55, and 56 here, and this is kind of long. I'm going to play this whole thing so you get sort of an idea of where we're going, so it sets up the keys and you can see where we're going to travel to. We're going to get in and out of this modulation. We're going to modulate from F sharp minor to E minor and back to F sharp minor again, okay? Let's get right to it. This is examples 54, 55, and 56. we used two types of modulations. We used a pivot chord modulation going into it, where when we slid up to the first inversion A and then D, those two chords right there they want to take you somewhere else. When you went, right? They want to take you somewhere else as soon as you hit those two chords. So D, I would call D the pivot chord, and I would call the first inversion A a passing chord. Starts to get technical, and I don't want to do that to you too much. I just want you to be able to feel these things and how they're working, and experiment as much as you can. Go anywhere. You just keep playing things and chords until you figure out something that sounds cool. Okay? Now getting out of it back to F sharp, we used a chromatic modulation, because you can kind of chromatically move to wherever you want, either ascending or descending. So we were still in E when we went like this. I would say the F and the A are the ones that are taking you back to F sharp. Okay? Let's start putting together a song, all right? I have one tracked up that has no words to it yet, and I don't even have a title for it yet, I don't think, but it illustrates all the things we've been talking about perfectly. It's got drums and bass and stuff, and I'll show you the parts. There's clean and distorted parts and everything that we've been talking about. And we'll fiddle with the parts, and I'll show you how I came up with them by messing around with things and getting it to sound right. It's not the best song I've ever written in my life, but like I said, it does take care of the things that we want to, that we've been talking about, and it don't sound too bad. It doesn't sound too bad, I guess. So let's get on it, all right? We're going to go to example 57, and I'll show you how, in example 57, you're going to notice that it's got the song chord structure in it, right? It's got the chords that we're going to be using, but it's really boring, so I'll show you what I did with it after that. Let's look at 57 right now. Okay, that was a little A to F to G thing that has been used since rock music came out, I think. It seems to be the progression of choice for a lot of songs. The thing about it is it's rather stale, that we just played. It's not, it doesn't have anything to it. Chunk, 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 F, 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 G, G, G. There's nothing to it. So this is also going to illustrate, this next example, illustrate what I've been talking about the whole tape about glue. I'm going to put those chords together in a little bit different voicings, use a two-string moving chord thing against a solid note, which would be the A, and we're going to stick some glue in here. Glue being little lines that fit the phrases together. They're actually linear. Most of the times glue is linear. Glue can also be sets of chords, like one chord different than the rest of them all to join these things together. All right, let me play 58, which is the same thing, only it's been enhanced, if you will. And this is how I write my songs too. I mess with them and mess with them and mess with them until I finally get it right. It takes all night sometimes to just get the basis for the song, which would be, say, the chorus or a verse or something. Usually I start with the chorus too, by the way, which seems to be the way to do it, because that's going to be your hook. All right? Let me play 58 for you right now. Let's do it a little bit slower so you can see what I'm doing if you're going to try to play along, because we're going to actually play this tune in a minute, the whole thing. All right? One more time, a little slower. Let me show you the rest of the parts to this tune. I'm going to show you the intro is going to be 59. 60 will be the verse, which is done with a clean sound. 61 will be the pre-chorus, and 62 will be the chords that set up the solo. Okay? Once I show you these parts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the song for you. We'll get the thing rolling and play the whole song. I cut off the count off, so you'll have to just sort of come in with me once you learn it and play along with me, because I cut it off the master tape when I was tracking it up, because I didn't want to hear it anymore. But it would be useful now, right? Anyways,
And at the end of the tune, on the outro, I'll wing a little solo, and we'll discuss the thing, and that'll about wrap it up, okay? So let me give you example 59, all right? Once again. Here's the verse, okay? It's kind of sparse, so bear with me. When we get the song rolling, you'll see how it flows, okay? Here's the verse. It repeats itself a couple of times. You'll see when the song comes out. I'm not going to show you the glue either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tab the whole thing out for you, and then while we play it, you'll be able to see me playing it, okay? Here's the pre-chorus. Let me play the pre-chorus for you. The pre-chorus I particularly like. It's kind of cool, the pre-chorus. So let's check it out. This is section 61. Okay, let me play the solo for you, all right? I'll play the whole solo. There's some harmonics and stuff in there. And then we'll see how it goes. This is section 62. Now that I've shown you all the parts, let's put the whole thing together and play it. I'm gonna roll some tape and show you how this song comes together. Okay? We got the moving chords against the stationary note. We have the clean chords with the open strings. We have a modulation in the solo and an outro. I'm gonna play a solo over the outro so that we can build it even more. You can see how it builds even further. So let's get to it. Okay? Let's do this one. Well, that's it for the rhythm and composition tape. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a lot out of it. This is probably the most important tape in the series of tapes in Fretboard Physics series of tapes because, like I said, in the music business, you're nothing without a song. Doesn't matter how good looking you are. Doesn't matter how well you sing, how well you play. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if you have no songs to back it up. So it's taken me quite a while to compile this knowledge and get used to not getting married to stuff that sounds bad. When you're writing a song, try to remember, if it doesn't sound great to you, then change it, whatever part it may be. Okay? Until next time, I'll tell you what, we'll go out with a song that, another song that I wrote. This one's got words. See you later.